What the heck did Elon set up a new company for? Why did he set up X.ai as a separate company? Shouldn't Tesla shareholders get to benefit from that opportunity? Seems like a conflict of interest. Well, that isn't the exact question, but we had a lot of questions about X.ai and similar to that very thing. So I'll get to those and many more in just a second, because that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to answer your comments and your questions that you've had over the last couple of weeks. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to do an episode where I'm going to make the case that $808 is logical for November 3rd of this year. Now, don't miss that one. So if you want to hear it, if you want to make sure that you get notified, then you hit the notify thing down here, but you have to subscribe first. And of course, liking is always good. And then joining Patreon is really, really good. Heading for my 107 months, I think that would be good. Well, just by the end of July, it'll be 8 months. So I would take that. 100 of you supporting Patreon would be really, really good for 8 months. All right, let's get into it. I think there's a chance I cut this off. I just noticed that. So if I get it wrong, it's ACKISH, Akish Angler 9758. I'm wondering if there should be a Jack in front of that, a J, like Jackish Angler 9758. I'm so sorry if I messed that up. But his question is it is the number one question I get. I get this question more than any other single question. And it is, where did I get the Cybertruck model over there? Okay, so I should just have you guys all tell me in the information below where you can get that amazing model, because it is a really cool model. And then I'm going to tell you where you see this is all a fake thing back here. You see, this is actually a fake background. If I go back far enough, I think I would disappear into the background, but that is a virtual background, and that is a virtual truck. And so for those of you watching today, you now know what's going on. Those are virtual books over there too. But buy them anyway, because you can get the real thing. Anyway, that's the story on the truck. And I'm sure I'll get asked 100 more times in the future about the virtual truck. Okay, number two, this one, you can see the whole thing. This is at Reagan Viking. Her question, or his question, I'm sorry, the question is, how will Tesla overcome the limits of raw materials to make enough batteries and solar panels to keep Tesla going? Is there enough lithium and copper and silver, etc.? Well, I did a big, long video about that the other day. I'm sure we'll do lots more in the future. The raw materials are an issue, but not until probably the end of 2027. And even then, Tesla is probably way ahead of these other companies in terms of securing their supply. They've been dealing with these miners, they've been dealing with the refiners, they've set up their own refinery, and they are known to be taking what they say they're going to take, unlike some of the other companies who are not selling as many vehicles as they thought they were going to sell, who might be canceling orders. So they could have some real problems going forward. But I think, I believe, as does Jordan of the Limiting Factor, that the lithium supply, which is the most important, most critical, likely thing to have a problem, is good until the end of 2027. So there's that answer. Okay, so Nick Hollingsworth 2838 at Nick Hollingsworth 2838 says, I didn't catch why Elon created X.ai instead of just doing the large language model work under Tesla. Tesla may have lost a lot of AI investment. And then somebody else says, any chance, this is Carrie Pinter 7847 at Carrie Pinter 7847 says, any chance that investors will lose confidence again when Musk pays more attention to his new X.ai company, like happened with Twitter? And then Reagan Viking, who comes in again, hey, Reagan, you got two, says, why did Elon make his AI corporation separate from Tesla? Won't that hurt Tesla's share price on the road? Doesn't this prevent investors from seeing Tesla as an AI company itself? Doesn't mean that Tesla, in fact, isn't an AI company, but a customer of X.ai instead. Okay, so let me see if I can talk about that all at once. It was absolutely critical that Elon Musk set up this company separately. And that is because he did not want to have any kind of pressure from investors with regard to how X.ai works. He didn't even want to have pressure from Tesla investors on how X.ai works. He didn't want to have pressure from Twitter investors impinging on how X.ai works. You see, the OpenAI company is now primarily the biggest stockholder and maybe majority stockholder is Microsoft. So they're going to have everything to say about how that goes. Bard and the whole Bing thing, that's Microsoft. So they're going to have a big impact on how that all goes. He didn't want to have those pressures. He wants to make sure that it's all about getting the truth out there. But he will be working with both companies, Twitter and Tesla, and probably SpaceX and Neuralink and all of them. He'll be working with the other companies at an arm's length basis, sharing information, providing services, both ways. It'll work both ways because after all, Tesla has this massive compute now with the Dojo, and they'll be wanting to get into that massive compute. They'll also be interested in the real world data that'll come out of everything that's happening with Tesla cars. And then with Twitter, they're going to want to download and have that information available to them with regard to all that large language information they need, all that data. So it's going to work both ways. Everybody's going to benefit, but no, Tesla shareholders will not be advantaged specifically with regard to the value of this company going up or down in the future. All right, so Guy Larrabee 8229 says, while Tesla products are the cat's meow, they do everything on the iPad, and this is not for me. I'm a stockholder and I will hold for the long haul, but I don't like doing everything online. The Kia EV6 has a traditional dashboard and is more familiar to older drivers. As well, you will be able to speak to a real person at the dealership when you need information about your car. Well, you know what, Guy? I don't know if I'm older or younger than you, but I am really old. And I get it. I understand. It's like one more thing we have to learn online. But the reality is the vast majority of the public today is very familiar, much more familiar with dealing online. They're buying all their products off of places like Amazon and Etsy and places like this, and they're used to doing their insurance online now. I haven't talked to my agent in probably 10 years. So, all that stuff is now happening online, and I'm afraid this is the future. If Kia thinks they're going to continue to provide traditional dashboards and get futuristic folks and people that have been working on their computers since they were 4 years old to switch back to doing everything the old style and the old way, it's just not going to happen. I mean, even look at your television. All of that is now all digital. All right, let's look at Bob Wallace 9753 says, I think the segment where Tesla will face the most competition is storage, both megapacks and power walls. There are already companies operating in that space, and Tesla doesn't seem to have any significant moat. Take a look at the very large PG&E battery storage system in Moss Landing, California. Not Tesla, but a competitor. First of all, let's start with that is not correct. The Moss Landing megapacks are in fact Tesla. Also the ones in Hawaii, also the ones in Australia, not all of the ones in Australia, et cetera, et cetera. We can go on and on. So let me start with the fact, I'm sorry, there's more to the question. Tesla may have lower costs once they scale up dry-rolled 4680 LFP cells, but other companies should have no problem purchasing fairly cheap LFP cells from battery producers. By the time the market is well enough supplied for price competition to kick in, Tesla may no longer have the cell cost advantage. All right, so the main advantage that Tesla has with regard to all of this is that the TAM is massive. So the main advantage they have is that they're making them. I know that sounds like I'm being flipped, but it's just true. The fact that they have factories that are already turning out a quality product at a quality price, and that they're ramping up rapidly, they will be able to take advantage of a TAM that is so big, it's hard to even wrap your arms around it. Elon has said it is the TAM, the total addressable market is almost infinite for these batteries right now. There's so many applications for them. There will be more applications coming downstream. 1/3 of the entire U.S. grid will be electrified by the turn of this decade, and I think that's an understatement, but that came from some reporting that was done earlier, I think yesterday. All of that is going to need batteries. Regions are going to need batteries. Local communities are going to have batteries. Factories, government buildings, stations, charging stations everywhere are going to have these batteries. It goes on and on and on, and that's worldwide. And as the whole world gets electrified, The requirement for these batteries is huge. On the other side of the coin, being less flip, the opposite thing is also true, is that Tesla is so far ahead in their software, management, in their installation methods, in their design. Pretty much if you read anything out there right now, it'll say that Tesla is ahead across the board on the way they make these things. They have the margins to be able to compete as necessary, but I don't think they're going to need to. They're going to be able to sell them for pretty much whatever they want to. They're 2 years out right now in terms of orders. I think they only will allow it to go 2 years out, and then each month they open another month and it's immediately sold. All right, let's see here. We've got LJ-IQ80G or 808, the letter O, G. All right. Hi, Randy. If you admire Elon for so many correct reasons, or he says, yeah, also try and learn from Elon on speech too. Deleting people's comments forfeits future Patreon followers. Well, I got to tell you something. I do delete comments. The ones that I delete are the ones that say, I learned how to get my investments through Susie Jones. And along with all those fake replies, I delete those as fast as I can. And I know some of you are bothered by those, and some of you may have even been sucked into replying to them. I delete them as fast as I possibly can. As far as I know, I have never intentionally deleted another comment ever. So if I did, I am so sorry. If I deleted, LJ, if I deleted your comment, I did not intend to. My goal here is to answer as many comments as I possibly can. As the channel is growing, it's getting harder and harder to do that. We're growing like this, almost like Tesla, but I'm still trying to answer all of them. I'm really sorry if that happened. Next is Ivor Thomas. He says, at Ivor Thomas, he says, Zero Hedge featured a piece by Epic Times showcasing all of those miserable stats that I was talking about in terms of the car volumes going down, EV cars volumes being in trouble right now, but prominently placed a photo of Tesla cars with no mention of them in the story at all. Narrative farming is everywhere. Then let me go on to this next one and ties it in. This is from Las Vegas bound 6167. Just a report that on cable about an hour ago, Cavuto of Fox News Channel did a video at a used car lot focusing upon EVs stuck on the used car lots. The dealer mentioning he can't move the cars due to range anxiety, and he said at about $10,000 price premium. He said also mentioned that most EV sales are overseas, such as China in the main, and then EM announced X.ai. So this is something that I have a lot of trouble understanding. The conservative side of the aisle right now is negative on electrical transition. They're negative on EVs. And these are people like Joe Rogan, who owns a Tesla, and other people on the conservative side who own Teslas, and they're still negative on the transition. And they're talking about the grid won't be able to handle it. And I do get the basic reason why. The basic reason why is that they're concerned that they're being bullied into greening America, going green. Oh, the government is just making us go green, and there's no reason to. We don't want to spend any extra money in order to go green. And I get it. I totally understand it. I have exactly Elon's perception with regard to the whole environmental issue problem. I think getting particulates out of the air is great. I think getting CO2 reduced is fantastic. I think that the electrification of the world is so important that I do write books about it and do these EVs, these videos about it. But I don't think that there's an existential threat from carbon. Having said all of that, and I am a conservative Republican type folk, having said all that, I don't understand why the conservatives aren't using their brains. And I know some of you who are not conservative are going, duh, but I think in general, this would be a practical matter that you can go in and do the math. And when you do the math, you're going to see that the transition to electrification is really, really smart. The transition to electric cars is really, really smart. And so I think it's time for the conservatives to get on board. All right, let's see. Dave Kaupwa, I'm sure I pronounced that well, 4512 says, Could you do a video on the potential countries that would be excellent for a gigafactory? And just wondering how many gigafactories total does the world need and which countries would be the best locations? So I did do a video on this, I want to say about a month ago, where I talked about that the gigafactories, I'm sorry, is this gigafactories? Oh yeah, I did one on the mega factories. The mega factories need to go close to either the source of the raw materials, the refinery, or the mega packs where they're going to be sold, their customers. I've seen recent videos where people are saying, no, mostly it needs to go near the customers. I don't think that's right. As long as it's near one or the other, and I'm thinking even better if it's near the refineries or the mines, because the weight of this stuff is incredible. So you don't want to pay a ton for moving the stuff around all over the world, bring the raw materials from over here to over there, and then the refinery is over here, and you got to go back over here. I mean, that's what's going on now. A lot of the mines are in Australia. The material is shipped up to China to be refined, and then it's shipped over to the United States to be put into batteries or into any, that makes no sense. They should be much closer together in terms of the chain. All right. And then with regard to gigafactories, that was the actual question. So for Tesla, he's talked about 20, but I think he's probably going to be happy with 10. I think that they will be, as he said, at least one on every continent. I think there is probably going to be a second one on the Asian continent, probably India. It looks like that's almost a certainty. I think there will be a second one in Europe. I think there'll be one in South America. I think there might eventually be one somewhere in Africa. That's a harder call. Australia would love to have one, but I don't know if that's going to happen. Japan and South Korea make sense, but I don't know. There's some real issues in both of those locations. But those are some of the ones that are most talked about. Oh, Canada and the United States East Coast. So those are a bunch that are talked about. And I'm guessing that it'll probably be between 10 and 12 when all is said and done. All right. Felix 7735 says, Randy, you need to get your facts straight when you reference the founder of Tesla. Elon is not, nor was he one of the founders of the company. The actual founders were Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning. Well, okay, that's absolutely true. They founded a car company that Elon came over and became part of, and then invested massive amounts of money in a company that would have otherwise gone out of business. And Elon has said this many, many times. And then he basically reorganized the entire concept, set up Master Plan 1, but for he and a couple of his other co-founders, all right, they weren't really co-founders, they came in a year or two later, but for those folks, there would be no Tesla today. So yes, those two gentlemen are the official founders. And so I'm sorry if I've misspoken, but in fact, it is all about Elon. All right. So then Millennial Rescue Org says, is the street conveniently forgetting the slide from the 300s, actually 404 with Tesla? All Tesla is doing right now is retracing back to where it was. Perhaps Wall Street has a vested interest in the ICE legacy manufacturers and don't want to promote Tesla. So the street does have a very short memory, although really good investors on the street are some of the best historians in the world. They are always looking at history in order to make their predictions about the future. But yes, it's true. Probably more than half pay no attention to history, or at least don't pay the right kind of attention to history. That's where I come in. I am a historian. I love to extrapolate and interpolate. I love to connect the dots, and I'm always paying attention to things like demographics and whatnot that other people pay no attention to. I mean, did you know that we're in the middle of the largest wealth transfer in the history of the world as the baby boomers transfer their wealth to the next generations? I mean, it's huge. It's been coming for a long time. Nobody says anything about it. Did you know that no matter what happens in terms of global warming, that the world population is going to go away completely if we don't start having more babies? Have you paid any attention to that? Well, Elon talks about it all the time. I've been talking about it for 20 years. All right. So yes, the street has conveniently forgotten or not. The reality is, and I'm doing a video on this tomorrow morning, where I talk about Tesla hitting 808 in November. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm going to explain this in great detail tomorrow morning. Hit notify, hit subscribe and notify, and that'll remind you to look tomorrow morning. I'm going to explain it in really, really great detail. All right, so look for that. All right. John Merciman 4773 says, Randy, love the channel. What is the reasoning behind the FSB staying with the car rather than full self-driving? FSD, full self-driving is what he meant. Staying with the car rather than the purchaser. Seems odd to me. Secondly, if you have access to the margins Ford and Chevy get for their pickup trucks, what will happen to their overall gross margins if the Cybertruck replaces 50 or 25 or even 15% of their truck sales? I would guess this would be devastating for them. And keep up the good work. Well, thank you, John, for those kind words. And thank you all. So many kind words. You don't know how much it helps me to stay energized for the show when you do say nice things. It's true for all of us, right? Okay, so FSD stays with the car. So you have this choice. It can either stay with the car or it can stay with the person. But sometimes when the person gets rid of the car, they don't have another Tesla, so they don't want to keep the FSD as their property. And so how do you deal with that? So it is a kind of a battle between the two approaches. If you're worried about it, what you do is you don't buy it. You do it on the monthly subscription, and then you don't have to deal with this issue at all. So I'm going to guess that people who think the way that you do will end up subscribing, and that is a great alternative. But Elon has said it's never going to change. All right, so now we have P38 Cobra and says, SpaceX went public. Okay, she's referring to a video I did earlier today. I did the video and I said, hey, put up your questions on that video and I'll try to answer them in this show. And she heard me say that SpaceX has now got a valuation of 150 billion and makes it the largest aerospace company in the world, or yeah, I guess in the world, but larger than Boeing. So largest defense contractor too. Anyway, I think defense contractor. I'll have to go back and look at my notes. Anyway, but no, it's not public. It is a private corporation. But when you do a private sale of more stock, when that private sale goes out, you can look at what you're paying for the stock in that private sale, and that will tell you, based on the total number of shares outstanding, what the overall market cap is according to that purchase price. And so that's how they do that. So SpaceX is now worth $150 billion. All right. And so let me suggest that you check out that earlier video, which is getting a massive response on the news of the day. So that card will be right there. And as I mentioned, tomorrow I will reveal why it is totally reasonable to see Tesla at 808 in November. I will also tell you whether or not I'm changing my call on Tesla in that video tomorrow to 808 in November. Hint, hint, probably not. Anyway, but I'll tell you why it's a completely logical, reasonable thing to think that it will be 808 in November. And you can tell me whether you think I'm an uber bull or just a bull or just nuts. And so, oh yeah, several people, of course, the comments do say, Randy, you're out of your mind. I didn't bother to put those up on this show. Okay, that's all I got for you. So Patreon, please, we could use more folks on Patreon. I am doing original content now. There are 3 original videos up on Patreon. It is free right now to join for 7 days. You can go up, look at those 3 videos, and then say, never mind, that wasn't worth $5 a month. Or you can join. Let's see, buy the book. The book sales were really, really good the first half of the week, and then they fell off yesterday and today. So I don't know what's going on. So if you haven't read the Elon Musk mission, I just don't understand. If you like this kind of content, you can get it in spades. And 80% of that Elon Musk mission, even though it was written last October, 80% of it is as current as the day we wrote it. Yeah, 20% of it is, things have happened, things have changed, things have moved along, but 80% of it, still 100% ready to go. If you're an entrepreneur or a wannabe entrepreneur, the other 3 books are for you. The Elon Musk method would even be for folks that just want to really understand how the man thinks. And there you go. I think I'm going to call it a day. my last video for today. And as always, it's been great talking to you.